Unit 1, Supply. Lesson 1, Suppliers.
This lesson aims to introduce principles of circular economy and to guide professionals and students related to the wood furniture industry into considering their current supply chain and suppliers, as well as the choice of future suppliers from a circular economy point of view. The learning objectives are: how to analyze your supply chain, what to consider when collecting information on suppliers, strategies to persuade suppliers to be more circular, advantages of local supply chains and lower environmental footprint supply, how and where to find information on suppliers for CE, for example through platforms and databases.
This lesson will touch the topics of a linear supply chain versus a circular supply chain, collecting information about suppliers, strategies for circular economy, local or lower environmental footprint, relevant platforms and databases at EU level or best practices.
Linear versus circular supply chain. So what is the difference between a linear and a circular supply chain? A linear supply chain simply describes a straight path from raw materials to production, and finally, to disposal. A circular supply chain, on the other hand, is where the raw materials used are recycled back into the manufacturing operation. They get to be repurposed for the production of another product. Circular supply chain management is the integration of circular thinking into the management of the supply chain and its surrounding industrial and natural ecosystems.
Circular value chain, some general considerations. To analyze your supply chain and suppliers, take a look at the different phases with circular economy principles in mind. By taking a look at the different phases, as previously shown in the linear supply chain model, resource extraction, production, distribution, consumption, waste, circular relationship opportunities between the different steps can be identified. To make the overall supply as efficient as possible, avoid and reduce the generation of waste, update all processes to be as efficient as possible, and obtain more with less. Include the possibility of disassembly and spare parts in the supply for repair or collection for recycling.
Circular supply chain, considerations for each phase. Transform your supply chain into a value chain by implementing the design phase from the very beginning and adding the recycling phase at the very end. Think about the circular economy principles which can be applied to each phase of the supply chain and to each supplier. Ideally, each phase should be circular. During the design phase, eco-design principles are applied. Material sourcing should be traceable and conflict-free. Consider if recycled materials can replace virgin ones, and durable materials should always be recyclable. In general, in all operations, the creation of waste should be avoided as much as possible. Matter categorized as waste requires special treatment and handling and cannot be reused easily. Where scraps are generated, aim for internal reuse to integrate them back into the system again, or consider if they can become secondary raw materials that can be sold or exchanged and used by someone else. In distribution, consider forward and reverse logistics for delivery and recollection to avoid empty trips. During the consumption phase, offer repair services and spare parts so the user can extend the life of the product. When the user no longer wants the product, it can be collected through a take-back program so it stays in the loop and is not lost in landfills. After taking back, a product can be refurbished and resold again, or recycled the product in-house or through private third parties or municipal recycling. Ideally, the recycled parts contribute to close the circle by being integrated into the production process again. This can be your own production process or that of a partner.
How to give information about suppliers. When collecting information, consider if the supplier is already applying circular economy principles, or is familiar and interested in implementing them. Inquire about the origin of the raw materials. Are they sourced responsibly and conflict-free? Are they reducing raw materials and energy and water consumption where possible? Is the supplier using efficient and updated production processes and tools? Applying the principles of reduction and simplification, more with less. Are their products durable and made to last? Do they reuse, recycle or responsibly manage scraps and end-of-life products? Have low or measurable emissions or do compensate them? Are they engaging in social or ecological projects with their employees and community? Use packaging efficiently and use packaging materials that can be easily recycled? Do they transport goods efficiently, and do they offset emissions from transport?
Strategies to persuade suppliers to be more circular. There are many advantages of adopting circular design and circular economy principles. Knowledge is attractive. Being familiar with circular economy principles and the ability to reason and to operate accordingly is a competitive advantage. Understanding circular systems can lead to new business opportunities. A company can only be as circular as the suppliers it sources from. By achieving sustainable development, a supplier becomes more attractive to their partners and prospective clients, and the entire value chain will benefit. A company operating with circular economy principles in mind will aim at creating synergies between environmental and economic development goals. A supplier who operates according to circular economy principles is a precious resource. From being a mere provider of parts, the supplier will be playing an important role as the guardian of the value chain. In the context of circular economy, a shift from competing firms to competing supply chains becomes even more relevant. Today, consumers favor sustainable goods and companies. A supplier who is knowledgeable in circular economy can anticipate the shift in consumer preferences towards more sustainable consumption choice.
How to prioritize local and lower environmental footprint suppliers. Working with local partners generally has a positive impact on the footprint of your supply chain. To visualize where suppliers are located and what parts they do provide, create a map of your supply chain. In the global economy, often suppliers are distant. Investigate if distant suppliers can be replaced with more local ones. Perhaps the cost of a component that arrives from far away may be cheaper, but it also requires higher costs for the delivery, resulting in higher emissions and import customs duties. Could a distant component be replaced with a more local one? If the local component is more expensive, can the overall cost be compensated due to proximity, like saving money on delivery, having lower emissions, and no customs duties? Where possible, industry and manufacturing prefer local partnerships because they reinforce the local industry and their communities. Short distances can also mean faster communication and no time difference. Also, the environment benefits from local partnerships because in general short distances create lower emissions.
EU platforms and databases for suppliers of circular materials. What can they offer? They can facilitate a connection because users are already familiar or open and interested in circular economy principles. Ideally, supply and demand meet. When one man's trash becomes another man's treasure, a circular match becomes possible. Generally speaking, having access to the different supplies and demands can generate new ideas for your own production. A list of platforms and online databases is provided in the supporting document.
Conclusions. Even if supply networks become more complex and dispersed, actors in the supply chain need to move closer, at least figuratively speaking. Procurement departments must take on a more strategic role, driving a company's competitiveness, and move away from merely ensuring the availability of materials at the right price. Transitioning to a circular economy requires procurement to embrace a collaborative approach in order to strengthen the organization's supply chain in terms of sustainability, performance, compliance and resilience, as well as its ability to address market needs efficiently and effectively. Beyond that, supplier collaboration will improve supplier relationships, enable joint learning and innovation, and support more effective governance.